Welcome along to Nailtopia, Inside with the Insiders. I'm Rachel. In this podcast, we're going to talk to some of the nail industry's biggest and brightest. But I want to get to know the real them. I want to know their real stories. So come with me as we take a peek behind the curtain. So today I'm with the absolutely fabulous Danny Simmons. Hi, Danny. Please tell us who you are and what you do.
Okay, wow, that's a goblet itself. Okay, so I'm Danny. I have a few hats, I suppose. I own a couple of brands. I distribute for quite a few brands under my umbrella company, which is Nail and Beauty Network. I'm also head of education for Nail and Beauty Network Education. I'm a nail technician. I'm an educator. I'm a mum.
Hardest job.
Rugby player when I'm not doing work, and just bit of everything really. So that's me in a nutshell.
Nutshell. So let's talk about how you ended up in the nail industry, because I know you've wore a few other hats before. So let's talk about how we managed to get the roundabout turn off to nail technician.
So when I was at school, I always wanted to be an Egyptologist, and my mum was adamant that it wasn't necessarily the right career path. Wanted me to look at something like law and things like that. So I'm not even going to lie. When I did my options for college, I picked a BTEC beauty therapy course to wind my mum up. And that was in 2003. And I did my BTEC and at the same time trained in nails, which is when CND was creative. So quite a while back. Gel polish didn't exist. Coloured acrylic didn't exist.
Exactly.
And I loved it. I have children in the background, so sorry about that.
That's fine. We'll do like what we always do. We'll just plough on.
It's all good. So I trained in nails as well as a lot of other elements of beauty, and then I decided when I was 17 or 18 that it wasn't necessarily it wasn't the right career move for me. So then I went on I did like temp and admin and stuff and that until I kind of found what I wanted to do. I worked with a local so it was before social services and the NHS was kind of separate. And when they amalgamated, I was working for them and doing like care brokering. So I was I was literally contracting care for the elderly and for people in hospital or people at home, and doing things like that. So a lot of liaisons with lots of like healthcare professionals and things like that. And I did that for a little while. Then ended up moved to Leeds and worked with occupational therapists in the 5 hospitals up there.
Wow.
And then moved to London, just moved around everywhere. And I was watching telly one day and I was like, I could do that. And my partner at the time was like, do what? And Gordon Ramsay was on the telly. I was like, I could work for him. And he laughed. So then I got a job with him. So listen,
if you're going to prove somebody wrong, you aim high.
Well, that's it. Yeah. I worked with Gordon Ramsay for 2 years, and that was the start of my kind of hospitality career. Did that for 12 years. In lots of different places, ended up in Dubai for a couple of years.
Wow.
Opening restaurants, doing some international events and stuff. I worked on the 2012 Olympics. I did senior hospitality operations management. So we essentially looked after a lot of the teams. We shipped over the Olympic Museum from Switzerland and put it into the Royal Opera House and turned it into a massive exhibit.
So you're good at juggling. You're good at juggling then, I would say. Yeah.
Yes. And like I ended up in Dubai and then I came home and I was like, okay, I feel like I'm ready to settle down. Don't really know what to do next. So I lived in pubs since I was 6 as well. So I was naturally already drawn to
me too.
Industry. I loved it. It was the best life, honestly. If anyone can't do it, it's hard work, but it's worth it. But then at that point, I realised there was actually one thing that I always kept, and it was always my nail kit. To this day, I've still got my creative powders from my course.
Yeah.
And that was 2015, 2016. And I was like, okay, there's obviously a reason I've kept them. Like, it's a long time. So I did a refresher course. I did a refresher course. And at the same time, I fell pregnant with my eldest son. So it was a natural transition, really. And then I thought, I'll do some nails to kind of, tide me over and whatnot. And then I ended up making a group on Facebook, the Nail Tech Network. And originally it was only meant for people like locally, because I couldn't really find anywhere to talk to people. And then within a couple of months, people up and down the country wanted to join. And within 6 months, it was international. And the rest is history.
It's a brilliant resource as well. It's where I first found you just before COVID. And some of the, during the COVID times, that was the place we were all going. We were all coming to you because you seemed to be listening out a little bit better than the rest of us.
or try it. Like the thing is, it's like as with anything, it's so sometimes you can have a lot of information thrown in your face, and it's literally like white noise. If it doesn't make sense, then you're overwhelmed. You're going to feel upset. And the thought of our industry or people in our industry feeling that way, it just broke me. So I was like, no, I need to try and help as best as I can. And having worked with like lots of contacts and stuff, like I've got quite a lot of wording experience. I talk a lot, so that also is a bit more wording experience.
Another thing we've got in common there.
Absolutely. This is why we get on. Yeah. but we've got like, I just, I couldn't just not do something. I couldn't. I needed to a lot of people reached out to me on inboxes and stuff, and then we started the business support group that we've got going as well. And I asked them the other day, actually, I was like, obviously COVID's pretty much over, do you still want the group as a resource, or do you want me to close it? And everyone unanimously was like, no, we want to keep it, this is a really helpful group. So that's what the pilot groups were.
So COVID wasn't as it wasn't as a big a dip for you as because you still got a focus. Did you find
a focus,
did you find that really helped you being able to still connect
mentally? Yes. Like I suffer from extreme anxiety and depression. A lot of people don't know that, and obviously I come across quite bubbly, but
I think sometimes it's the ones, because I also suffer really badly with depression. I have all my life, and I think people always say, oh, but you're always so bubbly. I really think we cover us with it quite badly. We're better at covering it than if you actually see somebody sad. They're probably not, if they constantly look sad, they're probably all right inside. It's us that are constantly
old age when people say if people are injured, the one that's not making the noise is the one that needs the attention first.
Yes, exactly. So it was a great resource during COVID. So
it was really.
So let's talk about, like you said, your umbrella companies. Let's talk about Nail Tech Network. When did you sort of come up with that idea, and what was the thought behind it?
So when I started the original group, Nail Tech Network, it got to a point where it was almost becoming a full-time job. I literally was like, I was trying my best to help people, had an amazing team that were like, working along us as well, and, trying to just answer as many people and make sure people realize that no question is stupid. Ask that question, because, there's a massive difference between asking a question and making a mistake.
Yeah.
So, we wanted to be there, and it's like, we almost used the group as like a staff room. So it's like the staff room for the lone worker.
Yeah.
And it just got to a point where it was taking up so much of my time. I had the choice of either looking at a way of, turning it into some kind of business opportunity, or having to like slow it down and just kind of do things when I could around having a job and being a new mum as well. Like, it was really quite stressful. I decided I had a personal credit card with like £1,000 limit on it, and I bought some products.
Yeah.
And it kind of went from there. It's been like, it's been a huge whirlwind, and there's been a lot of ups and downs with it, definitely. But I feel like it stands for something which is a bit more important now, which is great, because like people just see it as somewhere you can buy and sell stuff. Like, we do have the like the sales pages and stuff as well, so people can share on their professional products and know they're into professional people. But it's also like, if people do feel like they need to reach out, or they need advice with a client, or they just need a bit of a pep talk, then they know that they can come there as well. And I think that's really important, because social media is full of and filters and everything else, and I think sometimes people don't necessarily share the nitty-gritty, and that's what people sometimes really need to see and hear.
Exactly.
So I'd like to think that that's definitely what we've become. There's been an evolution.
I would say that that's what it feels like from my outside perspective. Yeah. So what are you wanting to do with it all? Where's your brain taking it next? I know you joked with me the other day, didn't you, about starting a trade show, and I'm like, nope, Danny, you can't do that. I'll come to you.
No, that's your baby. I think if I went to do that, I think I'd get shot. Because the girls already were like, Danny, you need to stop with all the ideas. Like, I literally hatch about 20 ideas a day.
Oh God,
we can do this, we can do that.
We really are twinning today. I burst through my salon doors at least twice a week and go, I've had an idea. And the girls go, oh, for crying out loud.
Not again. But no, what I want to do is that I have to start focusing on the business a bit more now. Like, things have definitely tapered off. I mean, to be quite candid, like from my perspective, the success of my business has definitely decreased since COVID. So I need to focus on, bringing that back. I mean, it's not something that you really expect people to say, but I'd rather be honest. I've always been honest. Things have definitely taken a bit of a dip, and so that tells me that my focus hasn't been necessarily in the right direction. And my team have been working really, really hard. So it's about my next kind of 6 to 12 months specifically will be focused on, we are intending to rebrand and rename the company, not the groups. So that we've got bigger appeal. We've got our acrylic system, which launched in April, and we're looking at pushing that. That's been doing really well. We've been getting amazing feedback, which we're really proud of. So there's that, and just trying to make sure that people understand that we're here. We're not just here to sell either. We're here for the individual, and I think that's what makes us slightly different from a lot of companies. But it just kind of the focus of what we're trying to do needs to just be realigned, because we went obviously for such a turbulent time. There is an element of self-preservation that everybody would need to have, but now we're trying to get back to normal street. We can start having a bit more business as usual. So
do you feel that as an industry we kind of gravitate more to the what can I do for others rather than what can I do for myself? Have you found that? Because I find my husband will say to me a lot, like, you're pushing yourself, you're not thinking about yourself, you're thinking about others too much. Do you find as an industry that tends to be? I think I would. I
think collectively, I think there's a big section of people that do. I think there's almost like slices. I think if you look at it like a cake, I think there's definitely a big slice of that cake that does that. And I think it's fantastic, but I think that we also need to remember that, and this is something I'm trying to learn personally, and if you don't look after yourself, you're not going to be able to look after people to the best of your ability. So you've got to start it at home. And that's something I'm definitely trying to look at and do at home. So there's like a lot of kind of self-care things I've been bringing into my home to make sure that I'm feeling a bit more
I've been bringing wine in. I've been bringing a lot more wine in.
Well, I've got the gin, but like really little things, like I've been doing my nails and I'm giving myself a lash lift this week and things like that. And it's like I'm going to the bath, I'm having like Epsom salts and things like that. I'm having a nice bath. It's like really small things that people take for granted, but I think things like this are really, really, really important. And in an industry that's based on that if there's a focus on image, of course there is. If we're not feeling our best, we're not looking our best, and that's also very important to be able to portray the best way to our clientele, and to those who are, there are going to be people stood in the wings judging. They always will, and unfortunately beauty is a very judged industry. So being able to kind of shine when others aren't necessarily expecting you to is also a good thing. So
do you know what I found as well in the beauty and nail industry? When I first started out in it, it was very much an awful lot of focus on people being in it being young and pretty and preened. And I think as it's developed, what clients, I find that they come into my salon, they say, we come here because it feels comfortable. I don't feel like I'm looked down on. And I'm like, is that because I didn't put mascara on this morning? And it's like, I feel like the industry's, the customers are looking for something now. They're not necessarily looking for that air hostess beauty therapy image that was in the 80s, preened and proper.
I remember the uniform. I had one.
I've had quite a few of them in the past, but I think now
white shoes.
Oh my God. And the blisters that my salon shoes gave me, I would literally, the minute I got into class, they'd be off and they'd be under the table, the blisters. And they're expecting people to go in and work in salons in heels. And I'm like, I can barely work in my salon in my trainers. But I think the industry's moved on. People are now looking for us to be a little bit more approachable, a little bit more.
And I think because everything's becoming a lot more personal, even down to nail art. So they want to be able to have that connection with you as a nail technician. They need you to understand who they are and what they're looking for. It's not just about obviously, especially back in the day, French, maybe a few crystals or a coloured nail polish was the standard. Whereas now it's literally how many crystals can you fit on that nail? How much how much intricate nail art. I want a Jim Ross picture on that nail, please, and I want a character there, and oh, do you know what? Why not? Let's make some really intricate paisley design on there as well. But I want it in 10 different colours.
Yeah, and I want it in half an hour because I've got to be
exactly, and I don't want to pay extra for it.
Yeah, and I've got to go do the school run. So can you hurry up, please? Yeah. I do feel it's gone that way. I think because especially with my salon, even though there's many of us doing nails, we tend to keep our own clients. I think we share around if we get stuck, but people are liking that one-on-one relationship that they have built with their therapist now. Whereas in the past, like you had the bars in the shopping centres and high street bars where it was so impersonal. I remember working in one in Meadow Hall years and years and years ago. And it was literally like a conveyor belt. And I just thought, this is just not for me. I couldn't remember people's names. I like that connection I have with one-on-one with my clients.
It's definitely a personal relationship that you have. I mean, you have to be a personable person to be able to do the job, because otherwise even things like rebooking, upselling are just not possible. Like, you know, if you can't find a medium to be able to find that level playing for each
definitely.
other, it's not going to work. And I mean, sometimes you will find clients that don't click with you, and that's okay. But you know, if you're in a situation where you know you constantly don't find that, maybe you know changing your way of doing things is probably a good idea. But people come, they're literally, it's like a 2 hours where they forget the world.
Yeah.
And they forget
and you are
else,
that
making pretty nails.
And we talked about that a minute ago when I told you like what I'd be asking you, and was like 80% of the people who spoke to us said they want to be a counsellor, and I'm like, well, you know, we got there then, didn't we? Because that's what we do, isn't it? We are their personal counsellors. I joke actually that it's the other way around. I use all my customers as my personal counsellors.
But that's, I mean, you've got the relationship to do it as well. So again, that shows, you know, you're definitely in the right job, and they'll remember stuff for you, and you'll remember stuff for them, and you know, it's a give and take relationship.
I've saved thousands of pounds in therapy.
Bargain.
So you're a mum. Is it 2 boys you've got?
2 little boys, 3 and 5. Yeah,
and they've got chicken pox at the minute, haven't they?
They do.
In the forest.
Okay, I'll have a look in a minute, darling. Okay.
And if not, so how do you find juggling work around? Do you find it's a good industry? I mean, this is something I do ask quite a lot. It's a good industry for being parents, being able to juggle around childcare.
It is. I must say, lately I'm struggling a bit, but I think that's because I'm very much needed on the ground floor.
Yeah.
And so being in a situation, I'm so sorry, being in a situation where I've got them at home all the time makes it really difficult, because with them having chickenpox, obviously they can't go anywhere.
And they're constantly saying fire to stuff.
Yes, pretty much. They just put Play-Doh in the fire pit, so that's great. Bit of toxic fire, let's do that.
Yeah.
But when like they're at school and nursery and things like that, I do find things quite easy. The only thing I probably do struggle with is that I get momentum and then it's time to do the school run.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know, I like to see a
mine's 17 now, so she's 18 next week, so I don't have that issue anymore. But I very distinctly remember you just get back and you just get started and you think, I'm on a roll, I'm gonna get my tasks done today, and then the next minute it was like, oh, I need to go do the school run. So I do get what you mean. Do you still do you still find that oh, it's adorable. I love that. It's like, hug me, mummy, hug me. Just in case you were wondering what's going on. They're just like, her boys are just trying to hug her and give her affection, and I just think it's so sweet. So
I love you.
Yeah, I love you. It's like, can I do the podcast, mummy? Can I do the podcast? So what would you think, what would you say to people that are starting in the nail industry but that are wanting to know what it's like to run it as a mum, as a business person? What would your advice be to make it work a bit better?
My advice would be, don't be afraid, because that's the first thing. Everyone's going to be afraid, and they're almost going to be restrictive with their time, and they're going to think, I can only do that 2-hour appointment. Don't be afraid, because the thing is that you're doing this career to better your life. You're doing it to enhance your life, and you need to embrace that. So don't be afraid. Make sure that you make it work for you and your family. Don't a lot of newer techs especially, they almost feel pressured into things by clients, and that's not good.
I have difficulty saying no. I have difficulty saying no. Get comfortable with being able to say no.
Yes, get comfortable with saying no. Know what you can and can't do. Don't be afraid to push yourself.
Yeah.
Obviously, just clearly communicate with your client. If you're trying something new, you tell them you're trying something new.
Yeah.
And make sure that understanding is there, because this is how we learn. We all learn this way. It's not a one size fits all. Like all of a sudden that person can paint something really intricate or make that really cool shape or like that.
Oh hell yeah!
And enjoy it. That's probably the best thing. Enjoy it, because people get really afraid. And when they do their first clients, but and that's totally natural.
We hear that a lot, don't we? We get a lot of people asking, what's your advice? It's going to be my first client. I'm feeling really anxious. I don't know what.
Yeah.
And it is just like, just go with it, just roll with it. And if something goes wrong,
exactly.
Say, oh crap, that's not gone how I wanted it to go. But we'll go again. I think, and I think it was Lisa Smith that said to me, because I'm really bad at being, I'm so bad at being organized. I'm not organized at all. Yeah. So not an organized person decides to do an event-based business, which is a lot of organizing. And my husband was like, you can't do this. And I'm like, I'll muddle through. But she said to me, write a list every day of 3 things you want to get done by the end of that day. If you only do 2 of them, move the one to tomorrow's list. And that just changed my entire. I still don't do it because but at the time it was like, this is a revelation, of course. And I'll sometimes be trying to do 7 things at once. Yeah. And sometimes I'll be trying to do 7 things at once, and I'll think, if I'd have just wrote that list, what are the 3 things? And I'll be sat in the car listing 3 things that are most important in my head. And I'll be on my way to do something else and think, no, that's actually really far down the list. So I'm going to do that next. I'm going to stop what I'm doing. I'm going to do that next. And if you have that moment that you think the thing I'm doing right now is less important than something else, stop what you're doing and do that important thing now, because you will be so grateful. Yeah, you get such a sense of well-being when you get that really important task done. That one you've been procrastinating on. So yeah. So tell me about the acrylic brand, because you were mentioning earlier. How did the idea for that come along? How did you? Were you looking for something that wasn't working?
Well, obviously, I've been in the industry for a very long time. And I've tried many different brands, and there's some amazing brands out there. There really is. But I always found that people were like, okay, well, I'm not happy with this. Hold on a minute. I'm not happy with this, or I'm not happy with that, or is there actually someone at the door? No, it's my children being silly. So I thought to myself, right, okay, I'm going to make a list of things that I, as a nail technician, would want from a system, and see if I can find something that in the industry already that ticks those boxes. And I couldn't. So then when I was talking about it with my my friend Angela Charleston, because she's co-owning the brand with me, she and I were like, okay, well, let's do it ourselves.
Yeah.
So then we went on a bit of a 2-year journey of trialing different systems, testing them, trying to find what worked for us. And there was literally a list, and we kept having to tick everything off. And we found a lab that creates this product that ticks all the boxes. And we were like, okay, we think we found the one. So then, because I've got quite a decent sized team, I said to them, I was like, this is a situation, we're looking for people to test it out. Would you be willing to give it a go? And so they were tested, the products were tested for 18 months across the UK in salons, under the guise of no one was allowed to know what the products were. Because we wanted to see exactly. We wanted to know exactly how it reacted to people. We wanted to know if it lifted. We wanted to know if it marbled. We wanted to know if there was any kind of inconsistencies in the batch colours. We wanted to know if the smell was too strong. We wanted to know if it held its bead. When you place a bead and it actually holds its shape. We wanted to know all of that, and we've had nothing but amazing feedback. Billy, Mummy's on the phone. Can you just wait, please? And we just found that this worked, and it took a long time, and we were like, do we do it now, do we not, do we do it now, do we not? And then we just were like, okay, that's it, I think we're ready. And it was really scary really scary. So like, oh my gosh, there's so much, riding on this, and are people going to receive it well? Are people going to enjoy it? Are people going to like it? Are people going to have problems with it? Because even though it's been tested, everyone's different, so you never know.
Yeah,
and then
there is a market for just multiple brands to be out there, and as my thought is, as long as you are using a system in its entirety, there's no reason why you can't have multiple systems. And I know a lot of people say, oh, I'll just use that powder and liquid, but as long as you keep the system intact and you use them properly, having multiple systems to meet all your clients' needs, because not every client is okay with a certain system. They will have lifting, and you'll be like, why is that lifting?
100%.
None of my other clients lift. So I
have one of my team uses 2 different systems, because on one person specifically, like something can't work, so I've got a separate one just for them, and it works really well. For them. And I think do what your client needs, as long as you're working safely, as long as you're working to the manufacturer guidelines and in the remits of how you were trained, there's not a problem. Go for it. Variety's the spice of life at the end of the day, and we're so spoilt for choice in the industry already. Why not?
This is it. I mean, gosh, there's just so much. I mean, it was my bugbear with the major trade shows that they weren't highlighting just how much there was out there for nail technicians. You'd go to one of the major trade shows and there'd be probably 4 or 5 stalls, and they'd usually all be glitter. Yeah. And I'm like, so where are all these multiple brands? Where are all these new innovations I'm seeing that I know exist? But I'd like to be able to meet the people that make them.
Yeah.
And knowing, like, I've got friends that make brands like this.
Show last year.
Yeah.
And the cost is just astronomical.
I know.
And that's the problem.
I know. And that's one of the other reasons that when I did Nailtopia, I was like, and it doesn't need to be prohibitively expensive. It needs to be able to wipe its face. It needs to pay for the room, and it needs to pay for the advertising. Other than that, it's a day out of my life. My husband's like, it's not a day out of your life, Rachel. You sit for hours on the phone. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm basically sat on the phone talking to people who are as passionate as me about my industry. So, and do you find that when you're like you say with the groups, when you're talking, it doesn't feel like you're working, because you're talking about you're talking to people that are passionate, just like you.
Well, that's it, and it's the equivalent of sitting with your friends having a coffee.
Oh gosh, yeah.
That's
talking about Tom Hardy,
the
same passion, the same. We're all talking about the thing we really have a
absolutely, and
there are things we talk about that no one
else will understand. Yeah, they'll be like,
we're all like,
how can you get that excited over glitter? And it's like, don't understand.
You really don't understand. Yeah, my husband's actually now works with me since we bought the Emoki cuticles off Emma Kalani, and he could never understand before. And he sits at night now, and he reads Scratch magazine every month, and he sits at night now searching Facebook pages and searching things online for nails, and I know, and I'm like, he never understood it before, and I love sitting there now. I'll be watching the telly and I'll look over and he's looking at something, and I'm like, oh, I've turned him. I've got a nail geek in my house finally after 10 years.
Oh, do you know what? I'd love to have that with my other app, but you wouldn't have any of it. Like, in my company, boy. My company, sorry.
It's all right.
Come on. No. Come on, good boy. All right, hold on.
So the Zoom's 40 minutes prohibition. Think of the word. The 40 minutes that Zoom is now insisting on is coming up to an end. So let's talk about what you wanted to be when you were growing up. You said you wanted to be an Egyptologist. Where did that?
Yes,
where was that? Were you watching Dora Explorer?
No, do you know what? It's really odd. And I remember the first time I ever saw anything to do with it, and I was literally going into, when you go from like infant school to primary school, or middle school to primary school, and you go and do your little tour and everything, and you're about to go into year 3, and you're afraid because there's all these big kids and everything. And I remember I walked into the reception area, and there was a huge display, and I couldn't read it properly. I pronounced it Iggy Pittons, but I looked at it, I was like, wow. And from that minute on, I was just obsessed. Yeah. And even now, like I watch the documentaries, I read all the books. I've been there. I've been inside a pyramid. I've been to the museum in Cairo, and it's just the whole thing for me.
Yeah. It is one of my great passions. Ancient Egypt is one of my great passions. I that when you just see anything, it's just so appealing, isn't it? Visually and the intricacies of the life and the whatever that they led. So you ruled it out because your mum said you couldn't do it. I told my daughter she couldn't do it. My daughter wanted to be a tiger tamer and she wanted to work in Australia. And I said,
a tiger tamer? That's amazing.
Yeah, I said, you can't do it because Australia's not 20 minutes away from me and you're not allowed to go anywhere that's more than 20 minutes away from me. That's probably why your mum vetoed it.
God, do you imagine tiger taming? That would be a cool job.
Well, she's a lash tech now, so, she's taming something.
Some lashes definitely need taming, so yeah.
So, right, Danny, I'm going to let you look after the Poxy boys. And as in chicken pox, not that they're poxy. That sounded wrong, didn't it? I'll let you get on with that.
No, you're all good, don't worry.
Thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
I can't wait to bring the trade show to you.
Buzzing. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to be able to help where I can. So just
excellent, wonderful. Well, don't worry, I've got your number now. You will be being pestered.
Yes, you do.
So once again, Danny, thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you soon.
Thank you, Rachel. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Right, take care. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Nailtopia Inside with the Insiders. If you have enjoyed it, you can show me your support by heading over to buymeacoffee.com/Nailtopia, where you can help keep me in Yorkshire tea and savvy bee, enabling me to keep chatting to nail industry insiders with the stories you just need to hear. You can also check out what else Nailtopia is about on both Facebook and Instagram.